Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour, your source for all hard rock, heavy metal, new metal, alternative, punk, horror punk, hardcore, rock, and all local bands, with your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather.
Hey, this is Sahaj. I'm a singer for MEYTAL and for Ra, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guest do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Radio Network, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Radio Network.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather, and as always, I'm bringing you guys and gals awesome interviews. Today, it's an honor and a privilege to have Sahaj Ticotin. He's the vocalist of Raw, which you all should know, and he's also stepped into the vocals with MEYTAL on this new album of theirs that they have released. Well, it's going to be released April the 5th, and you want to get out and check this out. It's called The Witness. So this album is pretty cool. From what I've heard so far, it sounds pretty awesome. So Sahaj, how's it going, man?
Everything's awesome, man. How are you?
Doing awesome. Glad to have you on the show, and I've been a big fan of Raw for a long time, man. So kudos to doing this, and plus with Raw.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you know, I've been working as a producer and a writer for a long time, so the band has been on the back burner for a little bit. You know, this is actually, doing this MEYTAL project is getting me, you know, sort of juiced back up into singing. Plus, you know, I've always planned on putting out another Raw record, so now it's just sort of one of those things where this is going to lead to that.
That's good, because I was going to ask about that. When can we expect something new from Raw? Because like I said, I really dig it. I like what you bring to the table for music with that band, and especially MEYTAL. I mean, this is cool too.
Yeah, they're different. I really tried. You know, with me singing and writing all the songs, I had to sort of make a mental decision on, okay, if I'm gonna do these two projects close together, how am I gonna separate them in terms of not only just sound but also just the writing? Like, I don't want it to sound like two of the same record. So I started really, when making the MEYTAL record, I just spent a lot of time listening to more prog metal and spending, you know, in the writing process, focusing on how to make things sort of mathematically challenging, but still somehow have cool melodies and easy to listen to, you know?
Yeah, so how's it been for you guys working with FM music management so far?
Well, I've been with Frank a long time. You know, the issue with Frank was, I'm going back probably 2003, 2004, when I first met him, playing shows outside of Chicago at this theater. I think it was called the Clearwater Theater. And we hit it off because Frank's a great dude. And, you know, and Frank has always been around. When I realized that he was transitioning into being a management company, I paid attention. I'm also good friends with Justin McCain, who's the singer for Through Fire. Or not the singer, but he's the primary writer in the band Through Fire. And I've known him a long time. And when he ended up over there and did well, I was like, wow, you know, they're transitioning into this management thing very well. And there's some challenges with MEYTAL because, you know, it's one of those things where it's not the kind of project that gets into a bus or a van and plays 200 shows a year. We all have careers that require an enormous amount of time. So there were some interesting aspects of managing this band, and Frank just understood them all. So in terms of putting together the team and creating a game plan, this is ideal. This is the best possible team up.
Yeah, and she had some members go out and then adding pieces and things like that. So, yeah, it takes a little time for everything to develop.
Yeah, you know, that's one of the challenges also with working with MEYTAL. She's got over 1 million subscribers on YouTube, 1.5 million friends on Facebook. She's very, very used to everything happening overnight because she puts up a post and it's instantmatic. You know, like anything that is worked on, she either gets a good reaction or a bad reaction and just simply moves on. Whereas when you're dealing with the music industry and you're trying to find new fans, not the people you've already cultivated, that's a time-intensive process, and there's no shortcut in order to reaching new people. It's just one of those things that you have to go out there and grind and really give enough people reasons to care.
When you was approached to join MEYTAL to help out on this album, what did you bring to the band that was possibly missing, especially that pop that it needed, maybe?
Well, the honest answer to that is, she was brought to me. The original singer who sings on the first album is called Alchemy.
Right.
The original singer who sings on the first album, his name is Eric Emery. Eric Emery is now the singer for a band called Sky Harbor, which is also a really cool prog band. But in the process of making the first record, I had to write songs, one, that suited his singing style, and MEYTAL was a little bit more involved because obviously I was just there to facilitate the production of the album. She came in and she started, she had never written a record before, so she was sort of, trying to get her feet wet in the writing process and came into the album with some preconceived notions on how records are made with not a lot of experience. And we had to sort through all of that. And then we also had to write songs that were good for Eric's voice and Eric's level of performing at that point. He's a much better singer now than he was back then. He's always been a very good singer. It's just, there are challenges in terms of using someone young who doesn't have a ton of experience. So you're diluting the idea. So when I was writing these songs, sometimes MEYTAL would have a take on something that I didn't agree with. But since I wasn't singing, I wasn't going to argue with her. It was her project, and she was paying me to take care of it. So on the first album, I just, was satisfied with my role as producer. And then when we finished that album cycle and Eric joined Sky Harbor, she didn't have a vocalist. And we did a bunch of auditions, and I tried to help her find a replacement. And ultimately, we were using a song that I sang the demo of in order to get people to, be into it. And she just sort of just gave up and just was like, can you just do it? And if you do it, I think it'll work better, and we can do this and we can do that. And my prerequisite was, yes, I'm happy to take over the role as singer of this band, but the price that you're going to have to pay is that I'm sort of going to drive the boat, because I'm not going to sing on a project where I'm going to compromise on any part based on, our discrepancy in experience. I'd already worked with tons of bands and sold records, and she's coming on to her second album. So the idea was she had to sort of give up a little bit of creative control, or I would say a lot of it, in order for me to take the reins as a singer. After a minute or two of her singing the songs that I was coming up with, she was fine. There was really I already knew what she liked, having produced the first record, so I was sort of sticking with her aesthetic, and I wasn't really deviating from the things that she liked. I just threw some more flavors in there to make sure that I got out of the album the things that I wanted to get. But, because of that aesthetic from the first album, I can comfortably say that when I do the next Raw record, there'll be a distinct difference between the two.
Do you like having that producer hat on? I mean, I know you like working with bands and things like that, but do you like doing that versus actually playing music? I mean, what's your take on that?
It's a sad answer, honestly, because the truth is I love performing. I just hate traveling. So it's one of those things where, I'd love to get up on stage and sing and have people enjoy the vocals and be able to sort of stretch my limbs as an artist and as a performer. I just don't want to be in a bus or a van to do it.
Right.
I did that for 6 years. I liked it most of the time, but a lot of the time I was really sort of irritated by just the idea of, here's another 12-hour block where I have nothing to do. My work day was 20 minutes of sound checks and an hour and a half of a show. That was every day. So it was sort of a difficult existence for me. I'm such a hyper guy in terms of productivity. So being a producer for me is a great thing because I can work literally as much as I want to, and I tend to overstack myself. I always have more work than I have time to do, but I prefer that because I feel like the writing process and the producing process can get very stagnant if you stick to one thing for too long.
Sure.
For me, being able to work with 6 bands at one time, they all sort of benefit from each other because I'm learning tricks on one band that I might try on another thing, or I might be able to pull a rabbit out of my butt for one band and then be able to pull that out for the next band that comes in. So it's one of those things where it keeps me sharper to be sort of in a constant state of creativity as opposed to sort of taking a record and just doing this one record until it's done and then waiting and then getting another record and doing that. I don't like to do that.
Well, since you produced this album with MEYTAL again, the second album, of course, did you bring anything out of them that they were missing or that they had and it just hadn't been brought out yet? Did you get that out of them?
I mean, the honest answer is what I did to switch it up and what I wanted to get. You know, Travis Montgomery is the other guitar player in the band because I play guitar in a lot of it as well. But Travis is in a band now called Kill the Lights. He's also in a band called Breath Signal, which was the band he was in when I first was introduced to him. And he is an excessively creative dude. So the first thing that I did, which we didn't do on the last album, was I literally had him fly out to LA, and he spent a week and a half with me just writing parts. And we wrote a lot of parts that I think were unique to the album, specifically because he had never really had that sort of one-on-one time with me on any of the other ones. He did write on the last record, but they were all riffs that he sort of just emailed me and I sort of turned into songs. This one, we sat in a room and we created entire ideas. And he you know, I'm pretty good at making guitar like weird sounds and crazy clean sounds and things like that. And he's never really done that or been able to do it on his own. So we were able to find some really, really cool things that created a color for the record that it wouldn't have been had I just written and done everything myself. The second thing I did was I brought in outside writing. So to make sure that it wasn't just all, you know, the Sahaj show every day, in the song Armalite, I actually wrote the song and realized it had some Seven Dust sort of overtones. And I was like, you know what? Let me ask Clint to jump in on this track. So I sent him the song, instrumental, I sent him a rough vocal, instrumental, no chorus, anything. So the song came to him with just drums in the chorus, and I said, write whatever you want. And literally his first idea that came out of his head is what's on the track right now. And it just fit perfectly. It was exactly what I wanted to do, and he nailed it. And then I got another guy named Trey Xavier. He's the guy that runs Gear Gods, which is a pretty big website. He's a great guitar player, and I had him come in. We worked on a couple of songs, one of which made the album. And again, he brought a flavor that I just wouldn't have done on my own. He did things on the guitar I wouldn't have done. So I was looking for ways to sort of color it outside of my boundaries so that it was something that had some real life to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and for folks that don't know, Clint Lowry, man, he's worked with some awesome folks, and he's not just a musician. I mean, he helps produce things like that. I mean, he is a jack of all trades, and I think he's really underrated, if you ask me.
Clint is one of those guys that's so talented that sometimes he sort of doesn't know how to choose what to focus on. But you know, when you force him to do one thing and say, dude, give me this, there are a handful of people in the business that do it as good as he does.
MEYTAL has released the official music video for Broken Circus Ride and now a new music video for Armalite. Was it hard, Sahaj, to choose between the current set of songs on this album? Which one would be the first single and video? And what did you want people to hear when they first heard these music videos that have not got to hear you guys as of yet?
Well, the first game plan we had, which was an awesome game plan, was shot out of the sky by a certain Don Henley, because we actually have a cover. Actually, Loudwire premiered it, but we have a cover of Hotel California on the record. And our original game plan was to do a video for Hotel California, our cover, as the sort of teaser and the initial sort of thing to spread before we went for Armalite, which is our official single. So we got a director, we booked a place, we got all this stuff together, we made the most awesome concept for a video, and we reached out to Universal Music Publishing and got literally a novel back by the guy. He wrote the longest email ever, which seemed to be his own personal frustrations on this subject. But apparently Don Henley sits in the bathroom looking on YouTube to find versions of his songs to flag to have taken down. He absolutely hates anything and everything YouTube related. And as MEYTAL is specifically a YouTube star, there was no way we were going to be able to get an approval to shoot this video. Because most people don't realize, legally, you can cover any song you want. You can cover a Beatles song. It doesn't matter. It's called a statutory license. They have to give you the license for it. But if you want to sync it to picture, you have to get the artist's approval. Mm-hmm. And that's where we got kiboshed about 36 hours before we were supposed to shoot the video. We got a no. And we were like, So we switched to Broken Circus Ride, and we made the video primarily focus on MEYTAL, which is what I thought her fans would like the best anyway. And I think we were right. I think that video succeeds in putting her in a slightly different context. You know, one of the things we did is we made her sad in the whole video, because in every video she's ever doing drums, she's always smiling. So we were like, let's get her doing something where she's sad and try and make her cooler and try and make her more interesting as an actress. And so the Broken Circus Ride, which is also one of my favorite songs, probably the least like Alchemy on the album, in the sense that it's almost like a sort of semi-R&B, trappy type rhythm. Honestly, I was inspired by a band called Polyphia, which I really like quite a bit, and that was sort of the motivation for writing that song. But the long story short of it is that we cut the video, everybody seems to like it, and we just moved on and started preparing for Armalite.
Yeah, and Broken Circus Ride, that music video was directed by Roscoe Guerrero. Did he also do Armalite too? If so, how was working with him on these videos?
Roscoe is one of those guys that is insanely good at pre-production and insanely good on set about just making things look very, very, very expensive. He made, we didn't spend a lot of money on these videos, but they look very, very expensive. We had very, very fancy cameras.
They do.
And and he really, really knows how to do cinematic stuff in a very, very, very intense way. He's also a crazy artist, just like us. So he can be flaky, he can be crazy, you can't get him on the phone, but nonetheless, the end result speaks for itself.
Are there any songs standing out more to you than any right now possible on the album? I mean, I know this is your baby. I know these are songs you've helped with, you produced it, but I don't know, and I know it must change from time to time, but do you have any that stick out maybe?
You know, it's funny because I sort of have the album divided into 3 sections in my brain.
Okay.
So there's the stuff that's sort of MEYTAL inspired, which has like a little bit of an Arabic feel that maybe even might remind some people from some, certain Raw songs or things like that. Within that category, there's a song called Hydra, which I really, really like. I think the elements, I think every element of that song is really, really cool. There's no moments in that song where I don't like the mix, or I don't like the performance, or I don't like the melody, or I don't like the lyrics. Like the whole thing, that song for me is sort of like the pinnacle of the MEYTAL type songs. I love Broken Circus Ride and Alibi, which are probably the most Sahaj songs on the record, in the sense that they're more R&B influenced, they're funkier, the drums are a little bit more jazzy, there's more sort of urban influence on it. I feel it's a little bit more modern. It makes me feel like, like I'm relevant in a modern day way. And then there's just sort of like, things that are like sort of commercial. And I think that, Hotel California and Armalite, I think Armalite for me, I do hear things on Armalite that I wish I could have done a little bit better. But I think from the perspective of sort of achieving a goal, it's if it's not a bullseye, it's right next to it in terms of just like putting an idea together and then getting it. Plus, it's a little bit of a bucket list thing for me to do a track where I'm singing over Clint Lowry's guitar part.
What do you hope everyone takes away from this new album, or message you hope they hear while listening to it, or just any of MEYTAL's music in general, Sahaj?
I mean, I think what she and I, the reason why we work well together is the one thing that we actually do sort of both bow down to is like passion and detail. We both like things that have a certain level of detail and color, that they aren't sort of just filled in for no reason, that there's gaps and beauty in the spaces in some of these songs. I personally am very, very happy with the way that I process the vocals. One of the things I didn't want to do is sort of end up with a record where everybody thinks everything is tuned. Of course, the funny thing is, everybody hears these songs and they're like, the vocals are all auto-tuned. But weirdly, I really did very little tuning on this album. It's one of those things where I actually took the time like I did when I was a kid, and there wasn't auto-tune and there wasn't digital editing the way there is now, and I just sang it better. I just made sure I sang it good and kept a good take. It wasn't like I didn't do 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 takes of parts in order to get the right thing, but I really wanted to make sure that the vocals felt real. And I tried to process them in a way that it wasn't, it didn't sound like some guy speaking through a fancy vocoded type thing all the time. There are moments where I'm using some tricks, but for the most part, I keep it as raw as possible. And then I think also from the drums, MEYTAL stepped it up. I mean, it was a struggle. I had to yell and scream at her 100 times in order to get her to play these parts, because she kept on saying no drummer could play them, and then she would play them. But, you know, we battled, and then she finally found a way to make it all work. And ultimately, I think her playing on this album crushes her playing on Alchemy. I think that the mix and everything else is a step forward too. So I'm just happier with this record, and I hope that for people, you know, if you're saying what do I want people to take away from it, I just want them to believe us. I want them to believe that every moment in the song is meant, and it's not just there to fill time. Like, I hate that stuff. Like, I hate tracks that don't go anywhere, that don't try. As long as everything is trying and really making an attempt to reach somewhere, I can give it props, even if I don't like it.
Have you seen growth from the Alchemy album to this new one, The Witness?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different areas in which I think, just from a production standpoint, it's much tighter, it's much more loose, it's much more, you know, and when I say those, I mean them literally from the perspective of it's tighter in the sense that it's just cleaner, but it's also loose in the sense that it's not over edited. It's not crazy. It's not so completely fake sounding. You know, I read her posts on YouTube, and I read the comments, and guys are like, oh, she's using samples and she's using this. And yeah, we layer samples into the drums, but people would be astonished at how little that stuff is actually mixed into the final. A lot of this is painstakingly put together in a way where it sounds fake, but it is actually her playing, you know?
Oh, yeah, MEYTAL's a fabulous drummer. She can hands down hold her own with anybody out there, I think, and that's just me personally.
Well, the truth is that she's a really good drummer. The side that's not necessarily world contention is just the fact that she hasn't played on stages for a long time,
right?
And she doesn't really know the stage volume thing, meaning that if you ever watch her play, a lot of guys who know drums will say, "Oh, she looks like she's hitting soft." And yes, she has a tendency to hit on the soft side, but if you yell at her enough, eventually she gets mad and starts hitting the drum. So that's my technique there.
The artwork was done by Cameron Gray, which done really cool, awesome work on this. How is working with him on this, man?
Well, she has a personal relationship with based on the first album. And, you know, he did some really, really great stuff for her, a couple of different images, plus the album cover, the last album cover, and this album cover. You know, he's one of those guys that just lives in his own universe, and that universe is lush and beautiful and really detailed and sort of like a good mirror of what her aesthetic is. And I think it's great. You know, I mean, in this album, we went back and forth on cover concepts more than we did on the last one, but that's probably more of a reflection that this record was a little bit darker and a little bit heavier in moments.
Do you like to do anything differently during the writing and recording process to help keep your mind fresh and open, to not let the music get stale or get boring with it? Do you do anything differently, maybe?
I am knocking on wood right now, and the reason I'm knocking on wood is because for some reason, I still hear music like a young person. I don't know why. I know a lot of guys that do my job that, you know, and I won't name anybody, but there's a ton of guys that do my job that just have their thing, and when it goes out of style, they just stick with it. But for me, I listen to so much popular music, so much new stuff, and I feel like I'm able to interpret it in the way that a young person interprets it. Not that I'm saying that this particular record is the youngest record I've ever done. I do a lot of pop as a producer, and I'm doing trap records, and I'm doing stuff that has nothing to do with hard rock at all, where I'm flexing more of sort of my youthful perspective than I would be on a progressive metal record. But I do try really hard to listen to the newest stuff, and the weird thing is that most of the stuff that everybody hates, I love. I love, you know, Post Malone, and I love Halsey, and I love all that stuff. So it's like, for me, I don't have the bitterness and or sort of prerequisite that something be classic in order for it to be good.
What can fans expect at a show from MEYTAL once this goes out live, gets on the road and everything? Possibly, what are we going to get, man?
Well, luckily now, because of my years of producing these bands, I have a small roster of guys. There's a band called September Morning that goes out, and those guys, the guitar player in that band, guy named Rich, is a really talented guy in designing lighting shows. And he does it, you know, at a cost. He's very cost effective, and he does a really, really great job. And so we're going to have him come in and help design some of the concepts, and also another band that I work with called Starset. They also put on quite an elaborate show, very, very, very high-end, fancy pants show.
Yes,
But
they do, yeah.
conceptually, he'll also help me sort of design what it is that I want to be able to do so that I can actually tell Rich what I want. And I think between me and MEYTAL, we'll be able to find something that represents her brand. But I think visually, we're going to try and be as creative as possible. I think from a performance standpoint, I'm super anal about being precise. She's going to be super anal about being precise. Travis is literally a robot. If he's a human being, I'd be surprised, because every time I see him play live, it's exactly what's on the record. And Anel, our bass player, she's a pro. So hopefully it'll sound unbelievable. I'd like to think I'm a pretty good front man, so we'll see what happens there. But I think the live shows will be satisfying.
Man, you're fucking crazy if you don't think you are, because you're a great front man, in my opinion.
Well, I know that, but I can't say it in an interview.
And Starset, I don't see how in the hell they wear those suits. Like, I was like, holy crap.
The secret to that is to realize that when they first started, those suits weighed like 35 pounds.
Good God.
I think Dustin's figured out a way to make those suits weigh like less than 10 or 12 pounds.
I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, they don't like it, but they do it.
So we're living in the digital era now to get albums out quicker, and plus we got social media to reach out to more fans who have not got to hear of MEYTAL. I know she started on YouTube, but do you like this that we're living in right now, Sahaj, or no?
I love one aspect of it. I love that when I meet A&R guys that work at record companies, the first thing I think is like, how do you still have a job? Like, what is your job now? You don't have a job. Don't tell me what to play. If my stuff is already blowing up on Spotify, why do I need you? Look at Post Malone. Post Malone couldn't get a record deal if he walked into a record company with those songs, being a big, tall, goofy white dude, saying, I'm going to write these songs about Xanax and banging chicks. And it's like, and literally every record company would split their wrists to be able to have him on their roster. So the trick is that the A&R record label model has now become, it used to be, back in the day, it used to be, how do I go from 20,000 records to selling 1 million records? Now it's like, how do I go from selling millions of streams to selling 1 billion streams? That's the difference. If you want to be in the big boy league, you're looking at trying to get songs with hundreds and hundreds of millions of views and spins on Spotify and YouTube. And that's the only thing that the record companies are really focused on. The rock universe is so small that if you can carve out your audience, which is what MEYTAL has sort of already done, then the last trick, which by the way is a very difficult trick, but the last trick for her is to convert all those YouTube fans who just want to see her play Tool covers into customers. And I believe the answer to that solution is through persistence and quality. If you keep doing it, they're going to believe that you mean it. And if it's good, the people that like it will buy it or listen to it, or streaming. I personally love streaming. People who complain about the amount of money that streaming makes you don't own their own masters. That's why. Because I make a good amount of money off of the raw records to this day. Records that came out in 2013, I'm still making good money from because I own the masters and I get 100% of the royalty.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as people want to think, and the only people complaining are the people who aren't getting any sense.
Speaking of raw, can we possibly see something later this year? Maybe next year? Maybe.
The goal is this: I'm working on a couple of deals that are going to free up a few months, and what I'm trying to do is carve out sort of the summer to write the whole record, and then I want to track and record and mix it for like a Christmas-ish release. I always say Christmas, and I'm always late, but I want it to be late 2019. I'd love to get a record out, and have the opportunity to get people excited, without being too far behind what we're doing on this MEYTAL stuff. And I work really well with MEYTAL and her husband's a very smart social media guy. So we're probably going to team up on that from a business standpoint, and they're going to help me sort of get the word out. And I think that it's going to be good. But, the album itself is going to be very different from The Witness.
Folks, you want to get out and pick up MEYTAL's first album, The Alchemy, I should say. And then plus they've got The Witness that drops April the 5th. and we'll get out and check this out. They've already got some music videos up right now for The Witness, which is Broken Circus Ride, and they also have Armalite. Get out and check that out, plus pick up Alchemy as well. Great music. I think it's a really great album, and they put this together really good. Sahaj has done really great on this. I'm not saying it just because he's on here. It's just a simple fact that it's good music, and it's good to have some fresh stuff out there right now.
Yeah, and I also like to mention that the pre-order is on right now.
Yeah.
And the pre-order has a whole bunch of like limited stuff that you'll only be able to get. And I mean, for people who are fans of hers and that are listening to this, go to MEYTAL.com and go on the pre-sale. There's so much awesome stuff, and they price stuff so that like every time you reach a tier, you're getting so much stuff for what you're putting in. You know, like for $20, you get a ton of stuff. So just go and check it out. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the pre-sale. And then the album itself will be available on all streaming outlets by April 5th.
So how can folks stay in touch with you, plus MEYTAL, if they want to buy some tickets, merchandise, things like this, plus this pre-order? How can you do that, Sahaj?
Well, the best way to keep in touch with me is to go to my producer page, and if you just type in on Facebook, Sahaj, the producer, that will come up, and you can just talk to me. I'm on it all the time. And I'm also on Instagram at Sahaj Ticotin. And, hit me up. I'm looking for bands to work with because I've got some slots for the rest of the year, but there's tons of stuff coming out with my name on it. I just got back last night from the Motley Crue movie premiere, The Dirt, because I wrote 3 songs for that, for the new Motley Crue stuff. So everything's been really good, man. Everything's going crazy. I'd love to meet new people and have them come reach me.
Before I let you go, good sir, would you do a promo for my show?
Of course. Hey, this is Sahaj. I'm a singer for MEYTAL and for Ra, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and BODS Mayhem Radio Network. Please check out our Facebook page. It has our podcast link, plus our YouTube link, and also soon a Twitch link. And also get out and check out Raw and plus MEYTAL. I'm telling you right now, folks, MEYTAL has some great stuff out there right now. So, Sahaj, thanks so much, my man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.